In this episode, I want to take you back to where it all began. We officially got together summer of 2014. I first met this person when I was only 13 years old. We lived in the same complex and hung out with the same circles. We lost touch as we grew older. Fast forward to 2014, I had just ended a long term relationship with the father of my two older children. I was hesitant to date. I was vulnerable and trying to find my footing. My friends were pushing me to get back out there so I could move on. I joined a dating site, and within days, his face popped up as a match. I actually thought he was married, but as it turned out, he was going through a divorce too. He had a son and seemed like a good family man. Because we had that history from when we were kids, there was an immediate level of comfort. He wasn't a stranger. There was this instant, intense connection. I felt a heavy karmic pull toward him. I didn't realize then that karmic doesn't always mean soulmate, sometimes it means lesson. When we first got together, I had Neptune sitting right on top of my descendant. For those of you who aren't well versed in astrology, your descendant is the point in your natal chart that represents your marriage partner and your closest personal relationship. Neptune is the planet of illusion, deception, and fantasy. It creates a lens where you're seeing everything through rose colored glasses. You don't see the person for who they are, you see them for who you hope they are. While Neptune was transiting my seventh house of partnership, it was simultaneously transiting his 12th house, the house of things, people, and places that are hidden, the house of what one is doing behind the scenes. While I was under a spell of nostalgia and romance, he was literally operating in the shadows of the 12th house. I don't know for sure how long he's been connected to this cult, but if it wasn't before 2012, it was definitely not long after. Looking back at the transits, the timeline for his double life fits perfectly with when he started building the system that would eventually become my digital prison. Looking back, there were definitely times where things didn't make sense, but I would brush it all off. I was far from perfect, and for the longest time, I believed I was more than half the problem. I had abandonment issues from my biological father and emotional baggage from past relationships. I was the perfect candidate for his savior complex. I saw the red flags early on, but I had an excuse for every single one of them. Maybe it's his ex wife, I'd say, or maybe he just needs a good woman in his life to show him what real love is. For years, he played the part of the steady family man who just wanted to work and come home. That was our life. We had our fights, but nothing felt truly dangerous. Until 2019. Everything changed after that. In 2019, I started to see a side to him I didn't recognize. It was when he looked me in the eyes and lied to my face while trying to convince me I was crazy. It was a performance. It was disturbing because what I was saying to him in that moment was a fact. I knew it was the truth. To see him carry on with such conviction while lying, I didn't realize he had that in him. I knew he bent the truth once in a while about silly things that didn't really matter, and I would usually let it go. But this was different. This was sinister. During our time apart, I found messages on his phone. I saw the way he was talking to other girls. He had created a completely different persona. It wasn't even who he was. The lies, the manipulation. I remember thinking, who is this man? You would think I would have cut ties then, but I'm the type of person who has to let everything run its course. I knew he was troubled, but I hadn't realized yet that he was sadistic. I actually believed he loved me and just had problems like we all do. For months, the double life continued to bleed out. I started picking up on things I once ignored. He would always say to me, "Why are you always looking for something?" Insinuating that I was the problem. My response was always the same because every time I look, there is something to find. My intuition was screaming, and the red flags were everywhere. But the people around me, the ones who thought they knew him, told me he'd never do that. They said it was just my own insecurities. When you live with someone for years and you've branded them as a good man, it's nearly impossible to accept anything else, especially when they are standing over you telling you you're wrong. That is the soul of gaslighting. Eventually, you start to question your own gut. You stop trusting the only thing that's trying to save you. 2019 wasn't just the year the mask started to slip, it was the year I woke up. Uranus had just moved into my ninth house, and it was waking me up to the world, pushing me towards my true destiny. The ninth house governs your worldview, religion, and philosophical beliefs. I have my natal moon and my natal north node in the ninth house. So Uranus was activating major karmic change that would completely shift my life direction. I had always been interested in spiritual concepts, but now I was diving in headfirst. It aligned with every part of my being. It felt like a calling. I started my first spiritual business. I became a certified Reiki practitioner and started offering tarot readings. Back then, before the world changed with COVID, people still did sessions in person. I worked so hard to fix up a room in my basement, a nice sanctuary for healing. But just after I completed that room, a pipe mysteriously burst in the ceiling, directly above my Reiki table. It forced me to move everything upstairs. At that time, I felt defeated. I thought it was a sign from the universe that I wasn't supposed to do this. Now, with everything I know about how he sabotaged every business I've ever had, my gut tells me he was responsible. Back then, I never would have suspected him. It is a terrifying realization to know you were sleeping next to a man who was actively trying to drown your success before it could even breathe. I started to notice a pattern. When I was on my own with my kids, I thrived. I was powerful, focused, and happy. But every time I let him back in to try and make things work, I would slowly slip into a depression. My energy was being siphoned. Because of this, we were on and off for years. I could never last longer than 6 months with him. By 2021, the weird behavior escalated into something truly sadistic. I have zero tolerance for cheating. I can put up with a lot, but if you betray me in that way, I'm gone. In 2021, I saw the signs, but I didn't have the black and white evidence he always demanded. He used my need for proof against me. If I didn't have a photo or a log, he would lie and manipulate until I questioned my own eyes. His famous line was, "Where's the proof?" I found just enough evidence to cut ties in 2021, and I had no intention of ever looking back. But as I've mentioned, the stars had a different agenda. Sometimes I think about that old saying, what you don't know can't hurt you. For years, he was watching my every move, hacking my devices while I lived in blissful ignorance. But now that I know the signs and what to look for, I see him every time he tries to break in. I believe everything happens for a reason. If I hadn't got back with him after those 2.5 years apart, I never would have uncovered the depth of the stalking, the control, and the cult. I would have lived the rest of my life never knowing the truth. Now I have to fight on a daily basis for basic privacy. So I ask you, what would you choose? Would you rather know the truth and have to fight for your life every day? Or would you rather not know and live your life with an ex and God knows who else watching your every move in the dark?